Order the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting for Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Would you all please rise and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance? And we have two young high school students with us. Would you lead us, please?
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Shellpepper. Here. Excuse me. Alderman Maroney.
Here.
Alderman Douglas. Alderman Rozak. Alderman Altman-Kloth.
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder.
Here. Thank you. On to a public hearing tonight. We're amending the planned development overlay for Olympia Fields development. The purpose is to hear public comment for an amendment to the existing planned development overlay consisting of 46.3 acres at the northwest corner of Olympia Fields Drive and Paps Road for various future commercial type developments within the Olympia Fields development area. Parcels are identified by tax code OCOC 0614-975-006 and OCOC 0614-975-003 and zoned general commercial development with an existing planned development overlay PD 421. The request is to amend the existing planned development overlay districts requiring regarding building height and building setbacks. If approved, the applicant intends to construct multiple commercial buildings with varied building set step backs while removing the required 5-foot building step back along the upper level. Mr. Gallo, if you would share the details.
Thank you, Mayor, Common Council. We do have a public hearing this evening. We scheduled it. We noticed the property owners. We put the sign out on the property. It is to amend the Olympia Fields plan development out there. It's a fairly minor amendment, but it's more of a step back issue, architectural design. So I have some pictures to show you of what this would accomplish. So as the public notice mentioned a few years ago, I believe we started in 21 and it was adopted in February of 22. So a couple of years ago, we adopted a plan development overlay for this area. Initially it was much bigger, but this area now we're talking about right now, that's a defined parcel for the Olympia Fields redevelopment area. They would like to develop in that smaller area this building here, so it's a site plan showing you kind of where it is. You have the roundabout for reference in the Olympia Fields area. This building is not here. They have not constructed it yet, but they would like to. The apartments have all been approved and the final 2 buildings will be under construction soon. But this building, they would like to get moving on that and they would like to construct that in this calendar year. So part of the plan development that we approved in 21 and 22 it required a 5-foot step back on the top floor. They went to their architects and they started working on it. There was several renditions provided to the city. This is one that came before the Plan Commission in February. There was several that we'll go through, but here's the copy of the ordinance that was approved. You can see it's dated from 2021, and it was multiple pages. I have the full signed copy with me. But in there's language about the building height, and I'm not going to read this whole paragraph, but it did allow it to go, to exceed the 50 feet up to 65 feet. In addition to the 65, these 4 proposed buildings are allowed 10 additional feet for architectural features. We're going to talk about the building height a little bit. And then it said all 4 of these buildings, and I'll show you what the 4 buildings are as well, are to contain a building step back of no less than 5 feet on the upper level, with final building design approval to be by the Architectural Commission, and then, it's important, and then reviewed and approved by the City Common Council. So it's not a very big change. What they're asking for is to amend just a couple things, and they provided this is what the request is. They'd like to change it to read, all 4 of these buildings are contain varied building step back with final building design approved by the Architectural and Common Council. They'd like to remove of no less than 5 feet along the upper level. So this was the site plan they provided for this area, and what are the 4 buildings that we're talking about right there. It's going to go down to 3 buildings because these 2 are being combined into 1 building. Initially, we approved it as 2 individual buildings, but it's going to be 1 big building, and then there's 2 additional beyond that. So earlier I mentioned there was several different renditions. They were trying to work with the 5-foot step back on the upper floor. They provided several renderings of what this would look like with their new proposal. They also provided a building height. I know earlier on it said 65 feet with a roof height, so if over here to the roof is 63, and then they go all the way up to about 70 feet. So they're well within the height requirements. That's not an issue for this building of what you approved. And this is what the Plan Commission viewed at their meeting. It's got varied building step backs, but not the entire top floor. There is a significant step back after floor 1, before floor 2. This is the commercial area, and there is a step back in that area. So these were elevations that were received right before the Plan Commission meeting, and we shared with the Plan Commission. This is what the final project would look like that they're asking for approval on. And again, you can see the step back after floor 1 to create that pedestrian type massing. It's not going to be going straight up to 65, 70 feet in the air. It will be more pedestrian friendly. So the Plan Commission did recommend approval of this amendment as stated back on March 6th. The Architectural Commission also discussed and agreed with the revised architectural design on March 6th. It was on their agenda earlier that evening for a consultation. They could not take any formal action because the way the ordinance reads, it says first this has to be approved, this amendment, then they can take action on it, and then it comes to the council. So if this is approved tonight, this amendment to the ordinance, they'll return to the Architectural Commission and then come back to the Common Council both in the month of April. Again, the Plan Commission did recommend the ordinance for the revised Olympia Fields PD.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. This is an open public hearing. Do we have any comments from anyone that's in attendance? Any comments on this public hearing item? With no public comments brought forth, we'll move forward. This will be on the agenda for later this evening. The public hearing is now closed. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of council minutes from March 5th, 2024.
So moved, Altman Cloth.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to our next item, comments and suggestions from citizens. We're going to start off. If you would like to make a comment on any topic to the Common Council this evening, there are blue cards. Please fill out a blue card and give it to one of the staff. We're going to start off with the Lake Country Municipal Court 2023 update presentation by Judge Kay. The Honorable Judge Kay, it's all yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Alderman, for letting me appear. I'll try to make my comments brief. I passed out a letter that I put out yearly. It's called my State of the Union of the Court. Just a couple of highlights there to make reference to, but things are going well. The one big change that you may have heard about is that we are adding the city of Delafield to our municipal court. They've already started writing some tickets. They'll be coming through in, I think, the middle of May. We have room for them, so there's no extra work for our staff, me, bailiffs. We kind of found a time slot that they can fit right in. And if it gets to be a little bit too much, we can always adjust things, but not a problem. There's probably a Section 66 agreement that you probably received and probably reviewed. All the municipalities, the existing 20 municipalities have to sign that document so that we have one common ordinance that all municipalities adhere to. As far as budget items, we are within our budget. As for last year, we had a surplus of about $41,000. That's unofficial. It hasn't been audited yet, but it's usually pretty close, within 1 or 2%. And that's just a function of keeping our expenses down. Tickets are up. I probably told you a couple years ago, we joined SDC, State Department of Collections. They are a division of the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. That's where Governor Evers gets his money from. And so they have the ability to literally go into people's checking account, savings account, debit cards, tax refunds, intercept those monies for fine revenue, and then send it to us. So it makes our job easier for our clerks. In the process, we have learned that we write less and less warrants. I probably used to sign maybe 15, 20 warrants a week. And so we've pared that down. I do warrants for people who are delinquent on drunk drivings, disorderly conducts, disobedience of officers, things like that. But the vast majority of the tickets, we don't do those anymore. We send them to SDC if people are not paying, and it's very, very efficient. So that's just a big, huge change there. I also passed out a sheet called fines by municipality, so you can take a comparison as to what your revenue from the court is as compared to the other villages and towns. The city is number one again, over $200,000. And I always, look at the bottom entries there. The counties always get a big cut for their jails, and the state always gets their biggest cut because they're just the state of Wisconsin. And then lastly, we get our percentage of the fine revenue. I showed in the back of my letter this little chart I like passing out because many people just don't understand what happens to a ticket that's paid. So a typical ticket that's paid of $124, 40% goes back to your municipality, your city, 27% goes to the court, and 8% to the jail, and 25% to the state. So that 27% is what we live on for our budget. So it covers, my salary, my clerks, the copy machine, the rent. Rent's doing very well this year, and so it covers all that stuff.
So you'd like the rent to go up a little
We
bit?
would like to keep it right where it's at. And I think Mr. Fry was doing some calculations, and he thought it was going to go up, and then he crunched the math, and actually, I think it went down a little bit, but, so he was a little.
Do you anticipate needing more court time or court space in the next 3 to 5 years?
I really don't. I mean, we meet every Friday, and we share that space with the police department and any other functions you guys have there. So you guys basically use it Monday through Thursday, we use it Fridays. And sometimes we talk about maybe having court on a Thursday for maybe the juveniles, maybe a Thursday night, so they're not coming out of school on Fridays. Because the bad ones who come out of school, they like it. It's a badge of courage, They tell the teachers they gotta go to court and talk to the judge, right? Well, I'd rather have them in school learning, but then you get into the staff working later, overtime for the officers, bailiff stuff. So it's kind of a budgeting thing that most municipalities kind of push back on. We could, but I don't see a real need for it. So we're efficient. We call the cases fairly quickly. The prosecutors do a great job. Your prosecutor does a great job. We all understand each other. We all have our parameters, our rules. We're very efficient that way. And when we do have our trials, I can just tell you, your officers do a great job. And almost all the officers that not almost, all the officers that appear from other municipalities, Heartland, Sussex, all very professional. You know, we can have a trial, and usually what I find a lot is that the defendants, they just want to ask that cop that one question, and then they ask it, and it's like, okay, well, we're done. But many times we walk out from a trial, and the defendants and the officers are shaking hands and talking about life, and so it's good. It's good.
Council, do you have any questions for Judge Kay?
And if you have any other questions later on, please feel free to call me or Chief Pfister. He's always available. Chief is always there for our monthly meetings. There's a couple of us that meet. I don't get to vote at that meeting, but help them sort through things. We sign checks, pay bills, get things fixed. It's the best time to get things done, and so year end, it's pretty smooth.
Are there any resources that you need that you'd like to share with council?
Nope.
I like that answer.
So,
Thank you very much for coming.
great, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to entertain a motion for consent agenda items, treasury report, and financials for February 2024.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I didn't go back. I hadn't received any blue cards, so I don't believe anybody during the comments sections has any comments they want to share with the council. Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. We'll start off with finance. Consider act on resolution 24-R3 182, approving amendments for the 2024 budget for continuing appropriations. Ms. Sullivan Murray.
Thank you. So this budget amendment is the one that we do usually in March every year. What this budget amendment does is it takes funds from 2023 for projects that are not yet completed and moves the remainder of that funding to the 2024 budget so that those projects can be completed. So in your packet with the resolution, we've listed out all of the entries that need to be made, all of the items that we want to carry over from 23 to 24. And that middle column shows you the dollar amount. And then following that, you were provided a narrative, a numbered narrative, that shows each item and gives you a little narrative, a reason why that we are carrying it over. So one of the things I always want to look at right away is those first 12 items. That's what comes from the general fund. Those are general fund items that we're moving from 23 to 24. And you see the first 5 of them are ones that we do every year. So if the police have leftover clothing allowance, they're still going to use that, or training, we take that to the next year. We usually also have an amount for salt in the snow removal area that we move from one year to the next if we haven't used it all up. After that, you're going to find carryovers that come mostly from construction projects. There are special funds that are coming from impact fee funds or TIF funds or capital projects. Capital projects many times go over 15 months, 18 months before they're concluded. So when you're looking at the list of items, you'll see that most of them have an open purchase order or a contingency or an amount that still needs to be paid. Some of these items are ordered and not yet received at the end of the year. They came in January or February. So we need to move the funds from one year to the next.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan Murray? Alderman Shellpepper is our chairman of our finance committee.
Yeah, I think you did a pretty good job of explaining, just for a person, for the public who's not fully aware of why we follow the process that we do. What percentage would you say total are either capital projects or purchase orders that are open right now but just haven't been completed out of, this entire list right here?
90% of it.
Right, because I guess like if you don't, if you look at the lists and, we do this every year, we typically don't ask a lot of questions about it. I never have in the past. It could look like we are under budgeting, a number, or then we're carrying that number over, and we're not like truing up what our actual budget number is necessarily by
Correct.
adding to it.
It doesn't get carried over just because it didn't get spent in '23. It only gets carried over if it is a project that is already in process and it hasn't been completed. and then we carry it over to the next year. It is not, if end of the year, there's money left over, you get it next year. That doesn't happen.
Right, and I mean, when we talked about the salt, I mean, and we think, I mean, I guess the question is there, it makes sense to me, because right now, what we have budgeted for '24 at this point is not enough on its own. We're gonna need this carryover very well, perhaps, we could end up needing this.
Yes, most likely we will.
So what would the argument be to saying, you know, back in '23, have, you know, instead of doing this carryover this way, actually budgeting for this number right now?
Yes,
What's the difference, one or the other?
Yeah, the biggest difference is we have a contract for salt. There's a certain amount of salt that we have to buy. We also budget an additional amount for if we run out of salt, if we have a rough winter. So if we're not using that additional amount, we carry that from year to year, so that we don't have to tax it again. Otherwise, it would just go to the general fund, and then we'd have to tax it again. We don't know how much we're gonna need in a year, because we don't know how much ice or snow that we're gonna have in a year.
Right.
We take a look at trends, we budget the trend, and then we have a little bit extra for filling up that salt shed.
Well, I guess I understand we'd have to tax it again, but then you're also having to justify that
Yeah.
number again, I guess, in a budget process. And I guess I can see why that'd be cumbersome
Yeah.
in a lot of circumstances, which is why we do that with these capital projects. We've agreed we want to do this. We don't want to come back and debate
Right.
this again, so.
Yeah, and
It
we
makes
budget for
sense.
our contract amount.
Yeah.
And then the additional is for reserves or for hard winters.
Any other questions from council? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper,
Aye.
Alderman Maroney,
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye. On to our next item, consider act on resolution 24-R3181, authorizing the refund and recovery of unlawful taxes to Wisconsin Brewery Company for 2023 personal property tax. Ms. Sullivan Murray.
Sure. So in the beginning of the year, companies have to certify to the assessors the amount of personal property they have, and an assessment is placed on it. So Wisconsin Brewing Company did fill out their paperwork, send to the assessors, get an assessment. It wasn't until they got their tax bill that they found that they should have been exempt from taxes because it's manufacturing equipment. So the process all went through. They did get a tax bill. They did pay their tax bill, and then came and asked us to consider refunding that because they should not have had to pay taxes. So we did put the paperwork together for them. The nice thing is in 2024, personal property taxes end. So we won't have a situation like this again. But had they done it correctly, they would have filed for the exemption instead of filing the dollar amount of their equipment. So they should not have paid taxes and are requesting a refund. In your packet, you'll see the breakdown of that, the total tax bill being just over $5,000, $5,136.39. The city portion of that would be $2,135.05.
It's a fair request, and it's the right thing to do. But the city or none of our affiliates had made any error in this process. It was an error by the applicant. Any further questions, comments? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Altman Cloth.
Second.
Any further comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper,
Aye.
Alderman Maroney,
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth, Jennifer Altman Cloth. Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to public services, consider act on resolution 24-R3179, 2024, awarding the 2024 street maintenance construction contract.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
This is our annual contract for our street and utility improvement project. We spent some time in committee discussing this and given a full explanation of the details of the project itself, but it does have a large portion along Concord Road, and the water main and the utility improvements on that stretch of the road will be included in this project. It was advertised and bid. We received 3 bids back, with the low bidder being Globe Contractors. They've been a reputable contractor in the past on other projects and have worked well with the city. And the breakdown for the funding, as it is through multiple departments, is listed in the memo. And right now, the recommendation is to award this to Globe Contractors, and with the motion of approving Resolution 24R3179.
Any questions or comments from council?
I
Jennifer
know we talked
Altman-Clove.
about this in committee, but just, you know, for the 8 people that are out there watching, I guess. Does Globe have, in your experience or your knowledge, have they had a history of coming in higher than what they bid a job at?
In my experience, no.
No, okay. And then can you just share that another big project in the city that was not a city project, but a private project that they were used on, that, I mean, they are a known entity?
So they were one of the major contractors inside of the old Highlander project in redoing the sewer and water, what will be known as the old Highlander subdivision. It was a very complicated and deep sewer project, and they were able to complete that along Oconomowoc Parkway in the public right-of-way, and they brought that up into the site this past winter.
you.
Alderman oh, did
Oh,
you
I
have
just said
more?
thank you.
Oh, okay. Alderman Spiegelberg?
I just want to say that it's fantastic when when a bid comes in so far under what the projected cost was. I think that's notable.
Alderman Maroney?
Jason, remember we talked about this in committee as far as like traffic flow on Concord Road with Globe. What kind of steps are they going to take as far as keeping the traffic flowing during the construction?
Yeah, so right now, the contract itself has language in it to keep traffic open as much as possible. So what we're anticipating is the complicated area in the 2 curves, severe curves, south of the bridge. That will control some of the availability for traffic. That will need probably some temporary detours on local streets. The project itself, outside of that, will most likely look like if you drove down Oakwood Avenue last summer, where the water main went in front of the road project and controlled about half of the road and then a little bit more during the working day. And they manage that by doing single lane traffic with flaggers. They do that during the day, and then at night they bring their work zone back in a little bit so that the traffic can get by. So that will be the primary process on that. But I know there will be some times when we have to detour traffic onto local streets to get them around as they make water main tie-ins, and the equipment and the trucking just will not be safe.
I just want to make the concerns of the residents, you know, being the only corridor coming from that direction.
So we've distributed letters to over 700 residents in that area, notifying them of this project, trying to do as much outreach as we can. We have a public information meeting scheduled for middle of April at the police department. We have an online website and link for our construction updates that I encourage everybody to sign up for. And we publish to all that subscribe to that. You will receive notifications for the updates on the project. A lot of that will be not just the project, but it will be the traffic and any restrictions to it.
If this is approved this evening, do you have an estimated time that they would start?
Next month. They want to go as fast as we can get approvals to them.
Okay.
It'll take 4 months. This will be tight up against the school start time.
Great.
It's over a mile-long project, almost $3 million worth of work.
Alderman Ellis? Can you close off the road to his place?
I can always go out the other way, so it's all good.
All in good time.
Okay, I know there's a 10% contingency, and the fact of the matter here is that we have we put that kind of stop-loss gap into it because of the fact of what had happened in the past. My concern is the surprises. And the fact of the matter here is there's going to be surprises. They're going to open something up and find out that, oh, we need to fix this also, we need to do that. Do you anticipate any surprises going down? I mean, this has been a while since we've really
Well,
touched this.
You said it yourself, you open something up and you dig in the ground and something might be there. The idea here is to try to account for as much as you can. The project does have some capabilities in addressing, some of the unknowns in itself without using contingency. We try to account for undercutting and subsurface work that a lot of times adds dollars to it. So the project does have some in there, and I anticipate using it. As you've seen Concord Road, you don't have to be an expert in noticing that there's a lot of failures south of the bridge. So that is all indications that the subsoil is weak, and it will require some excavation and new base put in. So yes, I anticipate some down on south of the bridge for sure.
Also,
The north half should go a little faster.
also, as far as on the south end of the bridge there, you had mentioned something before about parking. They're going to finally fix that whole area up there, and
Yeah, there is a very, failed area on the south side of I'm gonna call it the first crossing, the north crossing of the river. And on the south side of the road, there will be additional parking spaces, more formalized by curb and gutter, extra pavement, and new sidewalk in that area, new storm sewer. Try to improve the drainage in that area.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Herzog? I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved, Altman Cloth.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper,
Aye.
Alderman Maroney,
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to our next item, consider act on resolution 24-R3180, awarding the contract for the Lake Country Pickleball Complex. That's 10 additional expansion courts in the Northeast Regional Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
In your packet tonight is the details of this expansion project. This is a partnership between the city and the Lake Country Pickleball Club. We did solicit 3 bids and did receive them, and PLM was the low bidder. All the bids were close. It's nice that PLM got the bid because they did the first 10 courts, so we have that continuity there. This project will include, like the first one, it'll have the conduit and lighting posts to be available for additional lighting in the future. So tonight I have a resolution for Resolution 24-R3180 for the approval of this project, which would be $236,348 coming from the pickleball group, with the $200,000 from our park impact fees, for a grand total of $436,414.
We also have the members from the Pickleball Club here. If council, if you have any questions for them. If this is approved, do you have an idea when they'll break ground?
Yeah, we're looking at mid-May to break ground.
Mid-May? Sounds good. Questions or comments from council? Alderman Maroney.
You mentioned the lighting in committee, and so that's not part of it, you had said?
No, so this is, we have the conduit being put in and then the footings for the eventual lighting. This was just for the start, kind of like the first time we did. This allows the group to fundraise for the lighting portion of it.
Got it.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
In committee, Alderman Mulder had brought up about the landscaping. And I know at one point we had talked about the landscaping as also part of like a sound barrier. So just we didn't quite say that during committee, so I just want to make sure that, like, that's still,
Yep, so
There's
a
still
part of the
work to
project
plan.
is to, one, there's wind screening, so the vegetation will provide two things. It'll help with the addition of eliminating hopefully some of the sound, and then also kind of shielding the wind. So
they like hopefully eliminating the sound or will eliminate the
it
sound?
should eliminate the sound,
Okay.
that along with the wind screens.
Alderman Mulder?
This is a question maybe for Lori.
She's over here.
I'm over here.
She's the city administrator.
So their contribution is 236, and if we stay on budget, does that, we've paid the 200, they would pay the 196, the remainder would go back to the club, or we would hold it in
So
reserve?
the budget amendment that the city council made is that we would contribute up to $200,000 of the park impact fee funds.
If
Does that
needed.
answer your question?
I don't know that it does. If the the initial, the bid is for $396,740. If that's exactly what it comes in at, will we have put the 200 in?
Mm-mm.
They will have put the 236 in, and we make up the difference.
Correct. Up to, yep, 200.
Up to 200,000,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. Like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Congratulations, pickleball folks. On to our Plan Commission item. Consider act on ordinance 24-01067, amending the plan development overlay of the PD 421 ordinance 21-01014 for Olympia Fields Commercial Development located alongside Olympia Fields Drive. This is an ordinance change. This is the first reading. Council, you have the option to waive the second reading at your discretion. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor. We did hold a public hearing. There was no speakers for or against this. This is a very minor amendment to the plan development ordinance. I mean, it's a 4.5 to 5 page ordinance, and they're just asking to change a few words. And what that does is it gives them the flexibility on that top level. The step back was not practical to do it on the entire level. So they're showing you the elevations here of this is the final drawing of what they would build. This was a lengthy process. It took a long time, several trips to the Architectural Commission, and they've worked with staff very hard to get it to this point. I think it's been a process that we've all went through, and we've learned a lot about step backs. As you mentioned, this is the first reading. The applicants are here. They've expressed to me that they would really like the second reading to be waived. They would like to come before the Architectural Commission in April and then come back to you in April for final approval of this building. But the first step is tonight is to amend the ordinance that allows both the architectural and you to approve this building.
Alderman Mulder.
Thank you. I remember the debate on this a year ago whenever we did this, and the 5-foot versus non-5 foot. I probably voted for it. I remember thinking at the time, and now I really think that it was a bit of an overstep on our part to put in something as finite as a 5-foot step back on the top level. Especially when we have the Architectural Committee, when we have Plan Commission, when we have your expertise in on this. And I think that what we wanted at the time is we wanted to avoid having a canyon, because I think at that point the buildings are going to be set right much closer to the road than they are now. Is that correct? They were going to be, if not, our intent was to accomplish.
We were granting a higher height, and we
Right.
didn't want it to go straight up.
Right.
That was really the intent.
And I think that this is an example where we're spending staff time and our time reversing something that shouldn't have been in there in the first point, because we could have, the intent of what we want was known by you, was known by the developer, was known by the Architectural Committee and Plan Commission, and instead we're having to go back and change a plan, amend this because of really, I think, what was kind of overstepping what we need to do to be governing well. And so I'm in favor of this, but I think it's a good lesson for all of us that if we get so prescriptive in areas that honestly I don't know anything about, and I don't think anybody on this council was really qualified to be making that argument for the 5-foot step back. If we make those kinds of really precise rulings like that, this is what happens. Everybody wastes time, and we end up with a better looking product than we would have, but they're limited in what they can do because of that. So that's.
Alderman Ellis?
Very well said, and I concur, absolutely. This goes all the way back, I believe, to 21, doesn't it? And the fact of the matter here is that we've been kind of going back and forth. The Architectural Committee has been going back and forth. I've attended some of the meetings. The last meeting I did attend because Planning Commission was going to get that evening, and I didn't want to go in ignorant. And I learned an awful lot while I was there. I'm absolutely, when that time does come, I think we should really waive it. I think the one thing that I've gleaned from this whole situation is the fact that we need to rely on those experts that we have out there in the Architectural Committee and also in planning. That's why they're there. And when we start to micromanage, I firmly believe it's just an ego thing. And we need to go ahead and put our egos aside and just go with what they recommend, period. Okay? So I do know, I think that it's a good thing, what they're doing. I sat in the last Architectural Commission meeting, and it went pretty smooth. And I think that we should actually just go ahead and waive the second reading on this and just keep going.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
I think the building looks fantastic, and I know the wording is now going to say varied, is that correct? Just curious, like some of these step backs on the top floor, what are those at right now? Like to the left and the right of this front area?
Right.
Identify yourself, please.
Mark Lake, Wangard Partners, 1200 North Mayfair Road, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If you looked at last month's version of this, it was straight all the way across, and it was set back, and there were a couple things that were adjusted to kind of meet it, and there actually was like 54% of the fourth floor or fifth floor was set back in some way. Now, because we worked on it and we worked on it hard, you can see the ends of the building are now brought in a little bit, and then they come up a little bit, and they now are brought in and they're stepped back. And what Alder Mulder said was exactly what the ACC said about how the constraints of numbers. Take them out, let the ACC and us or you all be able to negotiate and say, okay, there is no specific numbers, but yep, now that looks good, without putting a measurement to it. And that's essentially what happened. So we move things in and out, we move things up and down, and all what you see on the top is not a flat roof that's in there, it's actually a parapet. And it's hiding all our HVAC stuff behind it, and our water treatment system and everything else that's behind it. That's what's really above it. But if you could look at the front there, you see all the different pieces. You know, this all goes in by 5 feet. So the intent that was there, all this area up front on this corner piece, all of that, all the way around the corner, that's all in by 5 feet. If you look on the ends now, this is all in by 5 feet. And now, because of this, now we have luxury units, if you will, that have wraparound balconies.
Yeah, nice.
Because of that, and then we have more deeper, regular balconies. So I think all in all, you know, we go from an 85-foot wide floor plate for commercial. Then we go to a 65-foot floor plate for the residential, all the way up. And then about 80% of that, up above that, is step back and all the way along, no more, 100 feet or so, that's not step back. So we got all the things that the ACC was looking for, I think.
It looks great.
Any other questions or comments from council? Alderman Schellpepper?
Yeah, well, I think the change being requested still complies with the spirit of what we were looking to accomplish. So while I can agree that maybe identifying a specific number maybe didn't necessarily make sense at the time, I still think saying we wanted the step back was the right thing to do. And I'm glad we did that because that's what, we're trying to set the policy that the other committees need to follow. So I don't think what we did was, necessarily wrong. And, I'm glad we still did it. And I still, as I understand it, we still have another council approval that's occurring. So that hasn't been changed at all. I guess, and the other reason I go back to the step back is because there are some buildings that are now basically finished right along Highway 67 that are right on the road. I can't remember what building it is right now, but I think that also, and it's blocking the view of Olympia Hill, so it's not like it's a big deal, right? And we knew that, and that was kind of what it pictured into it when we did that. But it does give you an idea of what we could be dealing with if we just have lots of buildings really close to the road. You'd get that tunneling effect. So again, I think it was the right thing to do, general, overall. I guess what I do have a question about is, Jason, as you said, we were going from a certain amount of buildings to a less number of buildings, and how does that work with the PD? I mean, is that not a set number identified in the PD? How do you go to a different number?
Well, the PD is you approve with the PD what's called a GDP, a General Development Plan. And general just shows the building footprints as well as access and parking and that. In here, what you approved, this was the General Development Plan. It showed these two buildings at like kind of a 90-degree angle here, and what they did was they just connected them in the middle. And that, to me, is a very insignificant minor change to the GDP. This is the primary building, and we actually fill it in. I mean, that added value to the building, that added some character right at the roundabout. I think that's fantastic. It's good for the TIF. So the thing initially talked about 4 buildings, so that was these 4 buildings, because it's defined as the buildings, between the roundabout on this side of the street going up to the pond. So I don't have a problem with that at all when it came in. They still have to go through Plan Commission, which they're slated to go next month for final site plan approval, and then they're working on the architecture with you and the Architecture Commission. So we still have to figure that out, but we've gone through the technical review and they've addressed all the concerns.
And so those 2 other buildings will still TBD, or?
Those
right?
are to be determined yet, right.
But they would be able to be built within the same requirements that we have in parameters right now. And is still your intention to do those other 2? Or what are you thinking?
Well, we'll definitely do the other 2 aldermen. Matt Maroney with Vanguard Partners. So these are, larger buildings here.
Right.
So we want to kind of phase them in along the way.
Yeah.
And this is the first one to go. Our goal is, if we're successful and you guys ultimately approve it at your next meeting, we still got a process to, line up, all the investors, because they want all the approvals in place and all that other stuff. Our goal would be this fall to break ground and get that one started. And then as we'll probably be, we're a little conservative in our approach. We want to see what the market is, in this area. The one building on the, over towards the lake is planned potentially a hotel.
Okay, that's what I
And it's
thought.
really that middle building. We're still not quite sure what use would go in there. So we're kind of seeing what trying to adjust to the market, meet the needs of the market, and then also listen to the community on what they want.
Okay, but we still think it'll be 2 separate
I
buildings
think it'll be 2
then?
separate buildings. It could maybe just one, we'll have to wait and see. But we do have a TIF obligation
Right.
to meet, all that. I think this building that we're approving today will go a long ways to making sure we meet or exceed our TIF goals as well. Great questions.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Just want to make a short comment and hats off to Jason, you and the planning department, the Architectural Commission and Vanguard. I've watched this process for a couple months, and even though it was a little bumpy and rocky along the way, I think the initial thing that the council did a year ago got us to the position to have a better looking building, and now we have a building that will be basically a pretty big statement when you get into that roundabout. And it also sets the stage for the other buildings if we have those other 2 buildings in there. So I think we're set up pretty nicely. And I think it will, if these things come into fruition, will exceed our TIF expectations and put us in a really nice position, I hope, to close that TID earlier than projected. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved, and I'd like to waive the second reading.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to consider act on an extraterritorial certified survey map to combine lands into one parcel located at W365 North 7148 McMahon Road in the town of Oconomowoc.
Planning Department staff received a certified survey map in the town of Oconomowoc, but it is within our extraterritorial review area. That's 3 miles from the city corporate limits. So it's on McMahon Road. Here's a location map showing where the city of Oconomowoc boundary is. It's approximately a half a mile away from the closest city boundary. They would like to combine 2 areas into this. There's the distance showing the 2,200 linear feet by as the crow flies. Plan Commission did recommend approval of the certified survey map, and it's on for action this evening.
The applicant is here if you have any questions. Any questions for Mr. Gallo or the applicant? I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to new business, consider act on ordinance 24-01068 to amend 12.071 and 2, cigarettes of the City of Oconomowoc Municipal Code to include provisions related to electronic vaping devices / nicotine. This is the first reading. Our clerk will lead us through this. Diane?
Thank you, Mayor. Recently, December of 2023, Act 73 was adopted, and as part of that act, it included a change to the cigarette tobacco state license or state law. It includes now electronic vaping devices, and what that means is that a retailer who sells electronic vaping devices now must be licensed as, we'll call it, it's our cigarette license. And again, the cigarette license included cigarettes, cigarette paper, tobacco products. But in order to comply with the law, and this will bring us current, we are changing the code, we're amending it to include electronic vaping devices, and we included the word nicotine. Electronic vaping devices do not have to have nicotine in them, but the law now wants them to be licensed. So I was notified about 2 weeks ago that the Department of Revenue has now finalized their forms. They had to amend them, and that also amends the license. In addition, there's tax that they're going to be charging, but we don't get into that. So the forms are now ready as of March 6th. So again, I found out about 2 weeks ago. So I am asking for council to waive the second reading, because if any retailer comes into the city, then I have the code amended and I have the new license form for them to be compliant. And when we do our renewal cigarette license, those renewal applications will be these new applications, and also the license will have the new language in it that I provide to them. So that's really it, unless Attorney Riffle, it makes us compliant, right? And lets the retailers know what they have to license.
Questions, comments from council? Alderman Mulder.
Is there a fee for the license?
Yes, we charge $100 for a cigarette license.
Is that, we set that rate?
We do. By, it's statute, they tell you what you can, if there's a maximum or a minimum.
And are we at the maximum?
We are.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
What was the fee related to cigarettes that we got rid of and dropped because it was like more onerous and just costing
Soda.
us too much? Oh, it was
We,
this,
it was $5 soda license.
okay.
We got rid of that, oh, I don't know how many years ago, lot of years ago. It was, the maximum was $5, and it took a lot of staff time and way more than the 5 we collected to issue those licenses and get them approved and all that.
Did you say how many this is going to impact in the city?
Well,
Those
we
businesses?
right now have approximately about 10 cigarette licenses, but
But there's going to be a lot of places that, well, at least a few that don't sell nicotine products at all
correct.
right now.
But if they're selling vaping devices, and some might be, there was not required to have a license. So what, we'll have to do is, during inspection time, if they are selling those type of products, then we'll have to let them know they need a license for those.
Well,
But,
I think some are getting, I mean, I think there's some sort of notification going out through the state right now to
Correct.
some of these places, right?
Right.
So it's on them to understand this obligation and
That's
register
correct.
now.
that's
so.
correct.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Ellis?
Yeah, what is the age at this point in time that one can buy cigarettes or even vaping at this point?
It should be
21, isn't it?
18.
Isn't it 21 now?
We're not to sell any tobacco, nicotine products, anything cigarettes to anyone under the age of 18. It's considered a minor.
It's 20, Diane, it's 21.
Our code is 18 in our code.
So do we
Oh,
need
the
to up-
state is 20?
21,
21,
It was
oh.
passed like within the last year, right?
2 years.
Did they change that? Because this code has been in our books for a long time.
So
something
I'm
about
thinking we need to go ahead and change
Oh,
that.
I would think so.
okay,
Whoever makes the motion, if we could add that, that would be great.
yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to make that motion, and I'd like to change that age to 21 from 18.
Yeah, absolutely.
Change it to be consistent with
With state
whatever
law.
the state law
Yeah.
is.
Whatever the state law is,
That's the
how's that?
best.
And waive the first reading or second?
And I'm going to waive the first reading, second reading, and we're going to go right to the third reading.
Almost.
I don't know when it changed.
So a motion's out there. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussions or comments?
I'm glad I
And did
asked
you
that
waive
question.
this the
He
first?
did.
I did.
He did.
Okay. Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper,
Aye.
Alderman Maroney,
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis,
Absolutely.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
We do not have any staff reports unless any of the department heads have something profound they'd like to say tonight. Any reports or comments from Alderman this evening? Alderman Spiegelberg, or Shell Pepper.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I just wanted to, I was thankful to see Concord on the agenda night being passed. That already went through, but I think that's a great example of our government being able to make changes on behalf of constituents. We have that going on. We have the boat launch coming up. There's a lot of good things happening. Rockwell Park, the grant money that came through, I mean, that was a big success. I know not everyone's happy about the park, but that was a grassroots effort and organization. And that's another responsive action that we took on behalf of constituents to get that set up. And having the state money come through and not have that burden placed on taxpayers is a great thing. So I'm really happy to see that go through. The Chafee parking lot, that's another one that's great. So all these things are just examples of city council and city government going to work for people. And so I appreciate all the city staff who are implementing the things that I bring to them, that other council members bring to them. And it's been nice seeing that responsiveness and feedback. And just wanted to say that. Thank you, Mayor.
You bet. Any other comments from Alderman tonight? Then with no more comments, I just have a comment from the mayor. Just wanted to say I'm sorry that I did not attend your committee meetings this evening. I did have the honor to attend the Oconomowoc Area School District strategic planning session tonight. They had a workshop, and they invited both staff but also some different people throughout the community. So it was really a nice thing. They did it about 5 years ago. They're reassessing and looking at it. It was also nice looking at some of their metrics as to things in the direction for our public schools. So as it gets a little further along, I'll try to share some more of that with you. But but I see things going in a positive direction for the Oconomowoc Area School District. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everyone.